in the proposed budget of government, the allocation has been drastically reduced from 1.4 trillion
to a niggardly 200 billion shillings. This is not just a budget adjustment. It's a broken promise. Suppliers and contractors who deliver goods and services to government are now facing bankruptcy. Jobs are being lost, businesses are collapsing. When government fails to honor its obligations, it weakens the entire economy. That's the reality that we are living today. It's flabbergasting how government is able to freely give out taxpayer money to private companies, but it cannot pay its citizens who it owes money. That should bother everybody. Government has so far spent 180 billion shillings on Inspire Africa Coffee Factory in Tungabo, a private company whose benefits the citizens don't see at all. But of course, the business owner keeps laughing all the way to the bank on taxpayer money. Day by a farmer, that's another private company, which promised the country the COVID vaccine. And that vaccine never came, as we all saw. And then later, promised government that it will begin to manufacture medicine for the country. 724 billion shillings was given to this businessman, the proprietor of Day by a Farmer. But there's no medicine coming out of that country, of that factory. Today, Atiat Sugar Factory has so far consumed 668 billion shillings of taxpayer money. But you guessed right. There's no sugar coming out of that factory, even when taxpayer money was heavily injected. Local construction company also got free money for no work done. 263 billion shillings was selectively given to them. Unlike the others, the excuse was that this was a bailout to the struggling company, as if other businesses are not struggling. We have time and again asked government to come up with a modus operandi for bailouts, because bailouts are understandable even globally. But when you selectively handpick a few connected people who have friends, relatives, in-laws, and outlaws in government, and you give them free taxpayer money, and no one is held accountable for this, it is wrong. Government said it was buying stake in these companies, but no valuation was done, no agreements were ever signed, and it's business as usual. So as these and other private companies get taxpayer money free of charge, government heavily taxes other companies, and as you have noticed, there is a raft of new taxes that the citizenry has got to contend with. Is this the future that was secured for the people of Uganda? Let me talk about our alternative approach. As the opposition, we propose a different path, one guided in fiscal discipline, in realism, and prioritization. We propose a more realistic resource envelope of approximately 71.4 trillion shillings. Aligned with actual economic performance, we call for reducing domestic borrowing, prioritizing arrears clearance, and ensuring that public spending reflects national priorities. Some might wonder why we are proposing 71.4 trillion, and yet government is proposing 84 trillion. So somebody might say, but opposition, why are you promising less? You should be happy that government is talking about a bigger figure of 84 trillion shillings. The reality is that this 71.4 trillion shillings is what we can marshal as resources for the fiscal year. That's the reality. Government tends to bloat the budget figure, as it has done this time around as well. But every financial year, we always have less resources than the bloated figures, which are intended to create an impression that our economy is big, and yet not. Government bloats up these figures because the Public Finance Management Act allows for a 3% usage where they don't have to get clearance from Parliament. they can eventually come and inform Parliament later. Now, 3% of 70 trillion is not the same as 3% of 84 trillion. That's partly why they bloat up this figure. So that 3% window is larger. But the reality is, all these past financial years, the bloated figure they project is never attainable because that money in reality is not there. An expanding and unpredictable resource envelope creates room for expenditure that escapes adequate scrutiny, particularly under classified allocations whose proportional limits are tied to the overall size of the budget. In effect, the larger the envelope, the greater the scope for opaque spending, often justified under national security, but subjected to limited oversight. It is precisely these weaknesses in fiscal credibility and discipline that necessitate a renewed focus on what truly matters: safeguarding lives, securing livelihoods, and strengthening institutions. We must move away from reckless expansion and towards strategic recovery. To safeguard lives is to invest meaningfully in healthcare and education. 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 When we began to make a lot of noise about this Louvoa hospital, we tried to access it, we were denied access. The Minister of Health was at one time denied access to that facility, and yet the Ministry of Health is supposed to supervise it. As we kept up the pressure, they began to put up a structure. There's a shell of a structure. When you go past that road, you see a shell. But that's not the hospital that was promised. That shell does not account for the nearly 1 trillion shillings that have so far been spent on that hospital. So there's got to be accountability. This project here was presented as a remedy to the complicated medical procedures which require Ugandans to travel outside of the country at exorbitant costs. But like many other projects in this our country, it's a complete failure. The money being spent on such white elephants should instead be injected into existing health facilities across the country, which are struggling with poor infrastructure, drug stockouts, lack of equipment, and facilitating medical personnel to do their work, including medical interns, whose services continue to be taken for granted by this government. You have heard them say, "You students." These medical interns, they carry the bulk of the work that is done in these government health facilities. Some of them work for 48 hours non-stop as doctors. We have got to not take them for granted. In education, increased enrollment has not been matched with quality. We have quality education as opposed to quantity education. We have got quantity education as opposed to quality education. Overcrowded classrooms, poorly paid teachers, and inadequate infrastructure, all of which continue to undermine learning outcomes. We must not invest in just access, but in quality, ensuring that education equips our young people with real skills for the future. Safeguarding livelihoods, that's the other element in our theme, means putting the economy at the service of the people. The economy at the service of the people. The economy at the service of the people. And incomes unstable. We must increase investment in agriculture. We must. All oversight committees. Public resources must be managed transparently, and those who misuse them must be held accountable. Let me talk about another elephant in the room: the impending sovereignty bill. Honorable colleagues and distinguished guests, as we reflect on the direction of our country, we must also turn our attention to the impending sovereignty bill, which has got far-reaching implications for governance, rights, and Uganda's place in the global community. At face value, the idea of sovereignty is appealing. Every nation has got the right to protect its independence and determine its own path. However, we must ask ourselves a fundamental question: whose sovereignty are we safeguarding? Is it the sovereignty of the Ugandan people or the unchecked power of the state? There is growing concern that this proposed legislation may be used not as a shield to protect national interests, but as a tool to insulate government actions from scrutiny, both domestically and internationally. If framed properly, such a law risks weakening constitutional safeguards, limiting civic space, and undermining the very institutions we seek to strengthen. Honorable members and our guests this morning, Uganda's sovereignty is already anchored in our country's constitution, the grand norm. It resides in the people, and it ought to be exercised through democratic institutions that are accountable, transparent, and bound by the rule of law. Any attempt to expand this concept must therefore be approached with caution and with full regard to constitutional principles. We must also recognize that Uganda does not exist in isolation. Our economy, our security, and our development are deeply connected to regional and global systems. International partnerships, trade agreements, and development cooperation have played a critical role in supporting our growth. A law that appears to withdraw Uganda from these frameworks or to disregard international obligations risks isolating the country, discouraging investment, and undermining economic stability, now that we're talking about the budget. Furthermore, we must consider the potential implications for human rights and governance. If the sovereignty bill is used to justify restrictions on accountability, media freedom, or civil society engagement, then it ceases to be a tool of protection and becomes an instrument of control. This will not only weaken our institutions, but also erode public trust in government. As the opposition, we are not against the protection of Uganda's sovereignty. On the contrary, we believe that the true sovereignty is strengthened where citizens are empowered, when institutions are independent, and when government is accountable to the people. Sovereignty should not be used to shield inefficiency, or suppress dissent, or avoid scrutiny. It should be a foundation for responsible governance and inclusive development. We therefore call upon Parliament and the country at large to subject this bill to thorough scrutiny. Laws that are not consistent with the Constitution should never see the light of day. We must protect the people and not undermine them. We must strengthen institutions and not weaken them. And we must position Uganda as a confident, cooperative, and respected member of the international community. I'm glad that this morning we are joined by some honorable members who belong to the NRM. I've seen some of them in our midst, and I'm glad they are here. Because this country belongs to all of us, and all of us must strive to better Uganda. It's important, regardless where you belong. Sometimes we have a lot of friction amongst ourselves politically, and there can be a place for that. We saw the boisterous election. But we've got to have a meeting of minds to say, how do we better this country? Because the places which we all represent, including the colleagues from the NRM who are here, when their voters go to hospitals, they also want to find medicine there. They want good roads. They want better education for their people. They want jobs for their youth who are bothering them in those constituencies. So, while we are calling this the Opposition Alternative Budget Priorities Day, really we are saying, can we focus on the country? And so once again, I want to salute the colleagues from the NRM who have joined us. Thank you for coming. Because we've got to build this country together for posterity. Fellow Ugandans, the choices we make today will define the future of our country. We cannot continue on a path of rising debt, weak accountability, and misplaced priorities. We must choose discipline over excess, transparency over opacity, and long-term national interest over short-term political convenience. Our alternative budget is not just equity. It is a proposal for a better way forward. A way that puts the people first. A way that restores confidence in leadership. A way that ensures that the public resources truly serve the public good. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, safeguarding lives, livelihoods, and institutions is not just a thing. It's a responsibility. It is our responsibility to ensure that every Ugandan has access to healthcare, education, and economic opportunity. It is our responsibility to ensure that businesses thrive, that workers are protected, and that the economy works for all. And it is our responsibility to build institutions that are strong and accountable. As the opposition, we remain committed to holding government accountable and offering practical alternatives that reflect the needs and aspirations of our people. Because we must. So I would like to appreciate colleagues with whom we have been burning the midnight oil to put together this work. Members of the shadow cabinet. Let me request colleagues, members of the shadow cabinet who are here to kindly stand. Thank you, colleagues. That's part of the team. Please take your seats, honorable colleagues. together with our technical persons. Let me request our technical people to stand as well. These ones normally want to be behind the cameras, but for today, cameras is safe. These are some of the technical persons, please sit, that we do work with. Others have not stood and I have noticed. Those who haven't stood, but it's okay. They're normally camera shy. But we normally take off time, the shadow cabinet and our technical persons, to craft an agenda for this country, so that we are able to paint a picture of what ought to be. Because it's important for us to do that. And like I'm saying, ours is not just to criticize. Yes, we get to criticize, but after we have criticized and said this policy is wrong, we offer an alternative and say, in as far as we are concerned, this is the best policy that we ought to implement. And it's good for the country too. I know that whenever we present these, and even on the floor of Parliament, many times they are disregarded. That's okay. Initially, I used to get demoralized. I said, but we put in a lot of work. And then our colleagues from the NRM side, even when quietly they tell us, hey, but these views, these policies are good. But as Champions, we have been told to support a different matter. So they tell us, on our end, we are happy that at least we are giving direction to the country. And that's why I would like to encourage us, please read this work. I know it's a bulky document, 350 pages. Please find time and read. And critique it as well. Because it's important that we also get feedback for the work that we are doing, and that we see how we build this country together. I'd like to thank you again for coming. I've seen some representatives from civil society. I've seen some representatives from embassies here in Uganda, and all of us. Thank you for coming, for God and our country.
Thank you so much, Leader of Opposition. Thank you so much. I think you can now attest to what I told you about the Honorable Ssenyonyi. That is a good those of us who have been taken breakfast, please breakfast. Yeah. And allow me at this juncture. 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 The Executive Director of Southern and Eastern Africa Trade Information and Negotiations Institute. Thank you so much for joining us. Allow me also to introduce Dr. John Spire, Dr. Sentongo Spire. Thank you so much for joining us. You're very much welcome. Please feel at home. In our midst, we also have the Opposition Chief Whip, the Honorable Nambeshe John Baptist. Allow me to introduce the one and only, our mother, Mama Nancha, Lina Zedriga, our acting president, the National Unity Platform.
Yes.
She's the one, very smart. Thank you so much for coming. Allow me also to introduce to you the representative of the president of the FDC, Honorable Anne Adeke Baju. Thank you so much. She's the Secretary General for FDC. Very young and very brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us. Allow me also to introduce the president of UPC, Honorable Jimmy Akena. And he's also the member of parliament for Lira municipality. Thank you so much for joining. You're very much welcome. And you know this is home. Allow me also to introduce the honorable members present. I am going to take a very short time introducing the members present. You know, we politicians, when it comes to certain functions and we are not mentioned, we feel bad. So some of you will think I am envious, not mentioning your name. So allow me to introduce the outgoing and incoming members of parliament of the 11th and 12th parliament. We have Honorable Santa Okot. You're very much welcome, from Padel District. We have Honorable Sakabila Dennis. Please stand up for recognition. From Katika North. We have Honorable Chirumira Hassan from Katika South. That is Luwero. We have Honorable Zake Francis from Itiana Municipality. The Honorable Kawalia Bubeka from Rubaga North. Honorable Mwada Kunyinji. You're very much welcome. Our Shadow Minister for. You're very much welcome. Honorable Sewongu Gonzaga from Kalungu, Masaka. Honorable Kabuya Frank, thank you so much for coming. Honorable Nachimwelo Christine Kaya from Chiboga. Honorable Katawazi Francis from Kalungu. Honorable Kayemba Solo from Bukomansindi, you're very much welcome. Honorable Karima Masawa from Bali, you're very much welcome. And then also Honorable Nalima Betty Etho from Wakiso, you're very much welcome. Honorable Tebandeke Charles, you're welcome. Trolls from Chiotira, Masaka, thank you so much for coming. Honorable Onekalit Dennis from Kitgum, you're very much welcome. And then we have the Honorable Ivan Chirine from Nakasongola. Some of you know him as the Zungu man. Honorable Zambali Blasio Mukasa from Nassau Municipality. Honorable Nasoro Engineer from Rubaga South. Honorable Kutesa Patrick from Chibanya Kabonera. Honorable Kiruru Yusuf Mkeretani from Kalungu from Kira Municipality. Honorable Manio Shi Omulia Nyama Ali Mwanda from Machinge. Honorable Zahara Mala Yulika from Machinge West. We have Honorable Kanga Moses from Jeru Municipality. Thank you for coming. Honorable Auma Janet, Umanempi Amolata. Thank you so much for coming. Honorable Auma Janet, Honorable Pierre Vincent from Dokolo South. Thank you. We have Honorable Elem Leo from Moroto County. Thank you. We have Honorable Joanna Lobo from Soroti. We have Honorable David Kalwanga Luchamuzi. You're very much welcome. Honorable Hussein, you're very much welcome. Honorable Hussein, you're very much welcome. Honorable Muiru Paul. Dr. Chiaga Hilary Innocent, you're very much welcome. Honorable Brenda Namkenya, you're welcome. Honorable Kalule Flavia Nabagawe, you're very much welcome. Honorable Sextoleko Robert, you're very much welcome. Thank you so much for honoring this invitation, members of Parliament. I know it is such a busy season. Some of us are preparing for swearing in, others are preparing their gardens, others are preparing their children and all that. You have left all that for this. We don't take it for granted. May the Almighty God bless you. I want to welcome everybody in their capacities and allow me at this juncture to invite Mr. Julius Mukunda, the Executive Director of CS Bank, to give us his remarks. Thank you.
Good morning. Yes. Once again, a pleasure being here, sharing with you insights about our budget. I gave the presentation, but probably for a small instruction, as you see me flipping over the page, then you can also start flipping the slides. All protocol observed, and I think let me just go straight to the presentation. But I think before I start, thank the leader of the presentation for the invitation. It's really a pleasure that you come and share with us some of the insights that we have. So you can go to the next page. My name is once again Julius from the CS Bank, and our job really is around how government collects money, but also how government spends money. That is our business. Next page. The budget currently has increased in the last 5 years by 75%, from 48 billion 2022, 2023, 26 to 84.2 trillion 2026, 2027, just 75%. So maybe we should be seeing 75% will be better in our lives. So that's something else. In terms of how the budget is going to be financed, we are seeing that domestic forces are accounting for almost 47%. That means that we are likely to be footing the bill in terms of domestic borrowing and the rest from other sources, since we can only be able to finance only half of our entire budget. We are glad that we have ATMs to ensure that our economy grows 10 times. But we believe that if you want to grow 10 times, have an ambitious target, then it means that you should actually do things differently. So we try to look at the numbers and see whether actually we are heading there, because NDP is telling us that when we look at what NDP budgeted for ATMs and what we have budgeted for, we have a shortfall of 8.1 trillion shillings. A case, for example, is where agro-industrialization really is far below that. Then you ask yourself whether you'll be able to get the 10 for sorted. What is causing these changes from to 84.6 trillion? You can see that we continue to have ambitious targets. Now, there is a challenge with these numbers. These numbers continue, they are moving targets. You get on this number, the next number changes, the third number changes. So as I look at this one, it's almost coming to 44. I think that's 44 trillion. If you look at the budget estimates, they're telling us 43 trillion. So I think these are some of the things that as member of parliament, we need to have some concrete numbers. Where should we find the number that we are likely to be using? So some of these numbers continue to shift up and down. If we look at budget allocations, again, we want to see if you want to say you are strengthening livelihoods, then you want to ask yourself, where is the money going? And we are seeing that most of the money is on development planning. But this money almost more than 80% of it is actually for debt. That's where most of the money is going. So this one is going to be help to clear you where the priority lies. For other things, bank will believe that your priority is where your money is. Actually, to clear you where the priority lies. For other things, bank will believe that your priority is where your money is.